Saagar, what's on your radar?
Well, former Vice President Joe Biden, he seems absolutely intent on losing the 2020 presidential election. Yesterday, during a campaign event in Iowa, he literally suggested coal miners can and should learn to code to replace their jobs. Let's take a listen.
I come from a family where, in an area where it's coal mining in Scranton. Anybody who could go down 300 to 3,000 feet in the mine, sure and hell can learn how to program as well. But we don't think of it that way. Even my liberal friends don't think of it that way.
It is difficult to describe how paternalistic and morally bankrupt that comment is. Nobody played a more pivotal role in the globalization of the American economy than Joe Biden, who proudly voted for permanent normal trade relations with China, NAFTA as a United States senator. These twin pieces of American action hollowed out the industrial Midwest while we imported cheaper plastic goods from China. And as working class Americans began to truly feel the pain of losing their jobs to globalization, Biden decided to lend them a helping hand by passing a bankruptcy bill in 2005 that stripped them of basic protections, and they could have used those protections when they lost even more in the Great Recession of 2007. Obama and Joe Biden presided over the greatest wiping out of middle-class wealth in generations. And it was during those years that he, of course, voted for and supported the war in Iraq, despite whatever lies that his campaign is going to tell you about that vote today. The men who fought and died in the Iraq War disproportionately came from the working-class communities that Biden played such a pivotal role in devastating. The former vice president is, in effect, telling working-class Americans that after playing a pivotal role in shipping their jobs overseas, sending their sons to die in war, and presiding over the devastation of their community, that they should then choose to learn to code, which is, of course, the paragon of a good job in today's economy. His answer belies the utter contempt for the dignity of real work in this country, and it buys into a false narrative that coding is the highest achievement that one can have in America. All of what I'm saying may sound familiar, because you could have said it about Hillary Clinton in 2016. Biden seems truly content on trying to do a rerun of her worst hits as a candidate, reminiscent of when Clinton uttered these famous words.
We're going to put a lot of coal miners and coal companies out of business.
Smart strategy. This isn't the first time that Biden completely stepped in it. Just a few short weeks ago, he affirmatively said he was willing to sacrifice millions of good-paying blue-collar jobs in favor of green regulation. Let's relive that one.
Lately, Vice President Biden, I'd like to ask you, 3 consecutive American presidents have enjoyed stints of explosive economic growth due to a boom in oil and natural gas production. As president, would you be willing to sacrifice some of that growth, even knowing potentially that it could displace thousands, maybe hundreds of thousands of blue-collar workers in the interest of transitioning to that greener economy?
The answer is yes.
He again sends the same message. Neoliberals place no value in the dignity of work, and that the working class of this country are cogs in a machine willing to be dispersed on a chessboard as to whatever role the elites here in Washington decide is best for them. It is exactly that attitude that led to Hillary Clinton's rejection in the 2016 election, and it remains the order of the day for most of the so-called experts here in Washington. What's really remarkable about this is Biden's utter shamelessness. Most politicians are smart enough to recognize the flaws of their predecessors and then readjust their rhetoric on the campaign trail. Rhetorical readjustment has been a key tactic that neoliberals have undertaken in the last few years to justify their bad policies by throwing the word working class into their stump speeches. But the thing is, Biden doesn't even pretend that he still says, because he still says the same things that Hillary Clinton did back in 2015 and 2016. It highlights what we've said about him from the very beginning here on the show. He has given absolutely zero iota of thought as to the conditions that led to Trump's victory, and he truly believes the election was an accident of history, which can be quickly reversed. He is in for a very rude awakening come November 2020 if he becomes the Democratic nominee. And Ryan, I mean, I saw you tweet this right afterwards, which was, it was like, what if I don't want to learn to code? Right? I mean, what if I don't want to be a coal miner? Is that okay? I mean, a programmer. What if I want to live in my community where my dad is from and my grandfather is buried and my wife and I really enjoy living there? No, you have to move to some ex-urban, whatever, and live in a studio, condo, so you can plug away on your computer.
Yeah, Joe Biden, you learned to code.
Right.
You want somebody to code?
Yeah.
You think coding's so great?
Yeah.
You go code.
Yeah.
And of course he doesn't want to code. Yeah. So why is he telling other people to code? Right. What this comes from is an utter lack of a worldview that can be presented he has a worldview, and you laid it out, but it's not one that can be presented to the public and get him elected.
Yeah.
And so you have to just tinker around the edges with this nonsense stuff. He talks about Scranton all the time, and I feel like maybe we should do a story about this, The Intercept. He has no idea what's going on in Scranton today. They haven't mined coal there in a very long time.
Yeah.
Get out of here. Pennsylvania's fracking now. But aside from that, the congressman, Matt Cartwright from Scranton, supports Medicare for all. The mayor of Scranton was an independent insurgent who ran against the Democratic Party, calling them thoroughly corrupt, and ran from the left.
Right.
This is the Scranton. Joe Biden, when was the last time he was even in Scranton?
To shoot his campaign ad.
To shoot his campaign ad. He's utterly lost touch with what actual working people today place any value in, and that's how he could say something like, you should learn to code, and God, Hillary Clinton in Columbus, Ohio.
Yeah. We're going to put a lot of coal miners out.
You know what? They should be out of a job because they're destroying the world, but we can find other things for them to do, and it's up to them what they want to do. Stop telling them the code.
Right, and that was what Crystal's point was, which is, even if you accept that premise, which is that, look, I mean, that's why the Green New Deal is at very least rhetorically phrased as, listen, a lot of these are going to be like working class jobs. The transition and all of that is not going to be something in which you have to be, the fabled job retraining, which is just completely fake and it never actually works out. I mean, one thing I want to get your take on, which is that how is it that this can still be held by so much of the elite Democratic Party? Because you and I know that so much of the elites in both parties they're nodding to that. They're like, they can learn to code. How is it possible after 3 years into the Trump phenomenon that you can still believe something like that?
Because the alternative is a Green New Deal, is essentially democratic socialism. And that's simply not where they are. They're much closer to where kind of Mitt Romney is economically, but they don't want to say that out loud. And so you're left with nothing. You're left with tax credits around the edges. You're left with free community college, and you're left with this skills gap was the big thing. That the problem was not wages. It wasn't that companies are only paying $18 an hour for a welder. It's that there aren't enough welders with skills. No, it's not enough people that want to do welding for $18 an hour. You pay $30 an hour, $40 an hour for a welder. Guess what?
You're going to have a lot of welders.
A couple years, you're going to have a couple welders.
And if if those welders also had insurance and pensions and all that other stuff, we'd have a lot of welders in this economy. But we place no value on that. And I think what we're getting, it's like we're watching him run this redux because it truly is what he believes so genuinely that and that's what I got at kind of at the end there is he doesn't see anything wrong with his Iraq war vote. He doesn't see anything wrong with PNTR vote on China, on NAFTA. I mean, I went back, I read some of his speech on the Senate floor during NAFTA, and he promised that NAFTA would help a car factory in his home state of Delaware. And guess what? That factory closed in 2007 because it got wiped out by both the financial crisis and because of NAFTA. And all those jobs got shipped to Mexico. I mean, I haven't ever heard him reckon with that. Nothing. No. Right?
So imagine you're a Democratic hack for a second. Put you on the spot here.
Yes.
And I ask you, what does Joe Biden want to do as president? Why is he running for president? Like, what's he presenting?
He would say this: I've got to defeat Donald Trump. And that's it. And it's not a very inspiring message.
That's really?
Yeah. All
okay.
Right. Ryan and I are going to dive into the hashtag Poll the People movement next, how it represents Andrew Yang's impact on the 2020 election.